Welcome to the Community ROI podcast. Here, senior community experts, founders, and C-level managers tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how a community impacts business growth. By listening to these conversations, you'll get actionable steps on how to connect community goals with business goals to skyrocket business growth while still bringing extreme value to community members. My name is Yurii. I help people and brands shine through communities and personal connections. And my guest is Jeannie Smith, a narrative strategist and organizational ethnographer who spent 12 plus years from anthropology to nonprofit storytelling, helping mission driven teams discover their authentic identity, find their fire, and build communities around it. So, welcome, Janine.
Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. I feel all warm already. Thank you.
Fire everywhere. So
Yes.
happy to
Yes.
meet you. And first of all, shout out to Tony for connecting us. Hey
Yes.
Tony,
Hey,
thank you so much.
Tony.
And yeah, definitely. Let's jump to the first question. So,
Yeah.
what's your definition of a community for business?
So as you mentioned, I come from a mission-driven nonprofit background. So in terms of business objectives and community building, it might be a little bit different. So what this is going to sound a bit counterintuitive, but I actually think if your business is trying to build a community as part of your strategy, I think you're already kind of doing it wrong. Um, I say that because your community existed before you did, before your product, before your service, before your company had a name, all of those ways. I think that there was a group of people out there who were asking the same questions and having the same struggles and wanting the same things. And so they didn't know each other yet. And they definitely didn't know that you existed as a solution. And so when I think about community for business, I'm thinking about recognition and not necessarily how to create or construct a community. It's not about building something from scratch. It's about recognizing something that's already been there. And so I see it as like a shared phenomenon, right? Like where people have been looking for you without even realizing that they were looking for you and looking for a community of people who were looking for you as well. So it isn't about building community as much as I feel like, as you'll hear me use a lot in this conversation, fire, you're a beacon, right? You're a signal fire. And it's a place where people have been trying to, really communicate unarticulated needs and find a place where they can gather and find their needs being met. And thinking like, oh my God, like you thought the same thing, or you were feeling the same way as well about these things. And so I think businesses have the opportunity to be catalysts, to corral people into a space where the members themselves feel seen, where their needs matter, and where they realize they're not alone in something. And so I think communities always come before a business. And I feel like that the business is always an answer to what makes the community visible to itself.
It's like it feels like connecting the dots, because we're all, once again, humans always exist and they always have some needs, have some challenges. And then as a business, you are creating a space where you are inviting existing community members to join this hopefully safe and trusted space. And then you kind of like taking this, I would say, a small part of this like bigger community and making it kind of like your business community.
Yes.
And then inviting people to a conversation around, once again, some product or service or whatever you do there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the gathering, right? I think it's what we do when we go camping. We gather around the fire. And so if a business is that signal fire, your people will come and they will see each other, and they will corral around the one thing that they all have in common, which is you as a solution, as a product, service, or opportunity.
What's your definition of a community goal?
So I think it's more simple than we might probably tend to think it to be. I would say that it's about making sure your members can articulate what they need, right? I think a community, like we've been mentioning, it's got to be comfortable. It has to be authentic. And there has to be an opportunity for listening and hearing, right? Like an exchanging of motivations and inspirations between the members and the constituents, and then the business with the organization, with the community itself, right? Because I think sometimes we take the business out of the community when actually you are a founding member, and you're not any different from the community itself. You are the founding member. You are the one person who says, I'm here. I want to corral and I want to invite you to make this exist. Like I said before, it's that people have needs that they haven't been able to name yet. And so they found you and they found each other and they can name that. And it's because you've been able to be a safe space to do that. I do think that it's important with communities to not push an agenda. I've been in marketing for a really long time. So especially working in-house as an in-house marketer, you're standing in the threshold between the people who are trying to find you and who need your solutions, and then as a representative of the company and the organization that you're with. So when I really think about the communities, it's not about the conversion, it's not about the sales enablement, it's not about funnels, it's about, you know, really, yes, profit matters. Those things are important, but I think specifically it can't be the goal. And so I think for the community members, it's just about visible support. It's about knowing that this thing changed my life, and they can end up being your biggest ambassadors to find and communicate with prospective clients and prospective leads. But it's still about prioritizing their needs even after they found you, right? It's about prioritizing that their needs have always mattered, and them continuing to feel safe to articulate the ROI of that solution or that product or service that you delivered. So it's a continuation of visibility. And I think that should be an important goal for a community, for any community.
That usually marketing and community are very intersectable. So there are a lot of activities that you can do either for marketing, either for community. Sometimes it's really hard to draw a line. And since you are having a lot of background in marketing, for you, what is the difference between, as we call it, like marketing in like current setting and community? Is there a difference from your perspective?
Yes. Marketing is about taking something there's different threads of marketing. So I'm going to go with content marketing. That's been my background for the last 5 years within that realm. Content marketing is about educating an external group of people about the value of a product, about the value of your organization. It is what I love to tell people. It is storytelling inherently. It's about, what this serves in light of this sort of invisible enemy, right? And really kind of trying to show up as either a hero or as a collaborator or partner in the lives of your customers and the people you serve. But I think with communities, sometimes it's not about the solution. It's not about the rescuing. It's not about the saving. It's just about like, I just want to know that there's someone else out there who just gets me. And and I think that when you think about a community, when you're building that, I think the beauty of what you offer as a business is that you are literally a mirror to someone who has not just only had their answer, like their solution provided, but they're also being able to think, okay, how much more can I solve upon this, right? I think about, forgive me, I think it was Brian Kling, one of your guests that you had. He talked about how they built a product for specifically in the space of orthodontics, but they had someone who leveraged that same technology for coral reef, right? So I think community building is always the space for innovating and for exploring and for questioning and for inquiry. And, how did this change your life? Oh, I advanced it in this way. That there's this space of just like sharedness. But I think with marketing, it's very one way, right? So it's, I've got a thing, I'm going to, try and position it. It's all about positioning to you. I think with community, it's bilateral. It's always, going back and forth between the members, or it's back and forth between the business and its members as well. So there's dialoguing, and then there's talking to and talking with, right? Those two dynamics are different between the two.
It's like the difference between the audience and the community. So basically,
Yes.
the audience is like one to many, and community is like many to many connections and
Yeah.
conversations, and you can continue them. And also, you like before we started, we were talking about like mission-driven organizations, and I totally get. I kind of have a gut feeling. We were talking also about the gut feeling about how do you feel that it is a mission-driven, and I think that if you are mission-driven, you have once again a story to tell because otherwise, how would you fire people's hearts if you are not having any story? And I'm curious from your experience, how community helps those kind of companies, organizations to amplify and to showcase and highlight their mission to the people in the community and even
Yeah.
around of the community.
Yeah. I think look, the work that a lot of the nonprofits I've seen and a lot of work that they're committed to, they're on the front lines of serving our community's most vulnerable populations. And so I think it's really important for nonprofits, especially, or mission-driven organizations, especially, to always come back to the why behind their work. Um, because this type of labor, individuals aren't getting into this sort of work and saying they want to make money. I mean, if you can make a profit, that's great. I mean, but I think it's also in the name, non-profit, not profit. But I do think it's important to recognize that the initial why was all about wanting to see change in their community. And they wanted to close the gap between the need and their resources, right? So that was really that's the operational like opportunity there between the organization and these mission-driven organizations and the communities that they're serving. So I think in terms of just being able to execute this, I think it really is about being able to coming back to a why and having these sort of internal conversations with themselves around why did, if it's a founder, a founding CEO or an executive director, about why they aligned with this work and why they got involved with it. Nonprofits tend to exist at the operations level a lot, and that's where burnout happens immediately because you're going programmatically. We need to meet the needs of the populations we're committed to, but that's also where disengagement, which is the enemy of this work, can come in. So I really think that it's really important to be able to kind of step back, like we were mentioning before, ask questions, ask hard questions, be reminded of, what's the impact and the ROI, that it matters to the work that we initially stepped out and established ourselves to do, and ensure that we're creating a consistent connection to not just the communities but ourselves, to ourselves, like that's an opportunity to exchange stories. Again, like I was saying before, um, we tend to take ourselves out of the community. We are part of it. And I think it's really important that your staff, your leadership, your people on the ground, and your people who are making decisions are able to really know why they're committed to this work. And it's all about just coming back to that internal flame, like sit in the warmth of the work that you committed yourselves to doing, and recognize that like you are an answer to someone's problem, and someone is looking for you. It's important to hold that space for yourself equally in the work that you're doing for those that are in need of your services.
And I feel like when you have this inner passion, people just feel that and they want to connect with you. And I feel like it's very important part in the every community building, no matter if it's like for profit, non-profit. If you are passionate about what you're doing, people will feel this
Yeah.
because you can't fake passion. You can try, but you can't fake it. So it's the
Yeah.
hardest part, I guess. And I think
Yeah.
that people who are like working in non-profit, they must have this inner fire because once again, if you are working at some, I don't know, Microsoft, Google, whatever community, yeah, you getting paid also for that. Yes, you definitely like technologies, you like people you're working, and you are like making a lot of money. Most likely, not. It depends. It's
Yeah.
always a question.
Yeah.
Still, and also you were talking about the impact, and one of the previous guests is Tim McDonald. At least it was the first person from whom I heard about it. That ROI is really return on impact,
Yeah.
specifically in the community sphere. And
Yes.
if we are talking about nonprofit organizations, for example, it's easy. You can basically connect everything that you are doing in the community. Either you are doing events, or you are doing customer support, or product, or talking to a member, or creating user-generated content. You can connect it to dollar numbers. So basically, you can just create this line. If we are talking about nonprofit organization, mission organizations, how do like what metrics do you usually track?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. I would say that it comes down to sustainability. I think, you know, we might not use the same verbs and wording and vernacular around revenue, but we are thinking about, are we creating a sustainable structure and an operation flow that allows for us to continue to keep doing the work that we're doing, right? I think it's to your point, like a lot of these leaders are really passionate, but they get the tunnel vision, right? So it's really about like really focusing on you know, this routinizing the impact. Like what does that look like from a routine? But sometimes sustainability actually asks you to step back and look at the full picture of something and maybe entertain a new innovative idea, right? So one thing that I'm thinking about is, like I'd mentioned, is a lot of nonprofit leaders exist in a space of the program level. We've got to launch this program, we've got to launch that program, and we've got to meet this need, and we got to do that need. And so all of these programs are launched, right? I mean, you've got like 9 to 12 programs. You're meeting your community right where they're at, workforce development and homelessness and houselessness and literacy and all of these like areas of impact that matter for your specific community. But here we have a typical situation where you've got more programs than sustainable workforce to keep them alive, sustainable resources to fund them, sustainable leadership to go out and into the community and talk about these things. You are stretching yourself thin. And so, yes, it would be great to operate in a way where you are a multiple answer scaled operation for your community, but you're stretched thin. And as a result, you're unable to actually deliver upon those results and the impact that you promised initially. So I think it comes down to sustainability. Is it easier for us to just get really good and be real honest and be real truthful about the work that we can truly deliver to our community? And that might just be 1 or 2 programs. It might not be a whole portfolio, but that's okay, right? Because you can sustain with 1 or 2. It's difficult to sustain with 9 and ensure that no one's going to burn out from this work. And we're seeing this now as a result with, you know, areas of funding, the philanthropic need, the fundraising need. You have to do this 9 times for each program. That's 9 different stories. That's 9 different messaging practices. Whereas if you can drill down to 1 or 2, it's sustainable. There's opportunity for refinement. There's opportunity for really inviting your community back into conversation and say, are your needs really being met? And hearing from them and saying yes or no, and being able to pivot and be adaptable as a result, which is the key thing with sustainability is also adaptability. And we need to see those as being coexistent with one another. So I think for a lot of mission-driven organizations, it's about sustainability. How are we sustaining the impact and not necessarily how are we scaling it? Because if you can't scale, it's not going to be rooted in, it's not, the depths of the root of that work is not going to be felt as much as it could be.
You know, you were talking about this limited resources and workforce, and it immediately reminded me that community builders are usually those humans who want to do everything everywhere all at once. And they want to create, like, as you've said, 9 community programs and like to ensure that everything is running, everything is smooth, and everyone is happy. And once again, it's close to impossible sometimes, or at least it's very, very close to burnout. And I'm curious, how do you personally prioritize? Like, how do you choose what program to focus on? Like, what, and maybe what you should stop sometimes?
I think when we design programs, initially it's to, you know, solve a cause that's impacting our community, excuse me, that's impacting our community, the immediate cause, right? But I do believe that every program or every initiative has the potential to address tertiary, other like causes within it. So stay with me here. So for example, I'm working with a nonprofit locally who went through a similar situation where they had a number of like a portfolio of programs on their roster. And unfortunately, just due to certain circumstances, they had to cut back a good chunk of them. Not only their programs, they also had to come back on a good chunk of their staff. So they went to a large portfolio, multi-member staff, to a one flagship program, to a one-person staff force. So this individual is now in a place where they are doing the operations, the marketing, the recruitment, the advertising, the thought leadership, all behind this one program, and taking on responsibilities and roles and tasks they never had before. So being able to kind of go in and consult with her on, some of the marketing needs also kind of revealed to us that there are ways in which we can talk about this program that is not just, oh, we're building a pipeline of talent acquisition for youth development here in the city. We are actually able to realize we're building a table where we are inviting regional employer partners, civic leaders within the community, and other organization leaders who are equally invested in seeing not just our young adults thrive, but the city thrive, right? All because of this one program. And so I think being able to step back from that one program or step back from that one initiative and say, or ask, I should say, what more are we doing that we're not aware that we're doing, right? Because you could be solving more of a symptom that is important to you could be solving more of a symptom of your community. But if you're able to step back and realize that your initiative or program can actually be helping to address a root cause within a community, that's different, right? Now we're magnifying the impact, the return of impact of this program. We're not just helping high school and college students, for example, get paid for a 10-week internship. We're actually bringing in certain community partners to come to a table and say, what does the future of our city look like? And how do we ensure, going back to sustainability, that we're able to scale this, not just, this small group of students, but how do we ensure that their talent becomes leaders, that becomes change agents, that becomes the new envisioned vision for our city? So I think it's going back to this importance of asking questions is like, okay, we came up with this initiative and we came up with this program and it's addressing things, but I think let's step back from the canvas that we've painted and ask, what's the bigger picture here with this program? Are there other causes and initiatives that we haven't realized? Are there other people we can involve in conversation with this that can share the load, not the burden, share the load of the vision that we're trying to ensure for our community to experience in? I think there's always more to peel away at in anything that we do, but it just takes you being able to kind of step back and be comfortable with asking that question and not feeling like what you're doing isn't enough. Is there more that we could be doing in a way that is fruitful and not in a way that's coming from a we don't have enough or a poverty-stricken lens, basically.
It also sounds to me like having this bigger helicopter view when you are like seeing, as exactly as you've mentioned, the root, like the cause, what's going on, like what do you want to kind of like deal with. And also, I feel like sometimes, some people are also using like this, not just helicopter view, but space view. But I believe when you are having space view, sometimes it's too hard to see the root. So I'm curious, like from your perspective, how to ensure that you are seeing the situation just enough to really keep this conversation going. So it's not too narrow, so that you are not short and you are not just like seeing just one thing. And also it's not too huge, not too vague to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, one is to not shoulder it alone. I think when you're a passionate individual, you're just ready to go and you just want to solve all the problems and provide all the solutions to everything that is really important to the communities that matter to you. But sometimes that gets you too close to the fire, and sometimes that gets you too further away from the vision you originally set out for. I am a huge fan of collaboration. And I think when you're able to create collaborative dynamics between yourself and others to invest and partner, not in a way where you're trying to get buy-in, but you're trying to, going back to what I was saying before, is you're trying to create this sort of shared experience around values, alignment of core values, I should say, alignment of personal passions. I think being able to know that you're not going to be able to answer everything alone and do everything alone is critical. Again, it goes back to burnout, it goes back to resources, it goes back to what's not sustainable. So I think being able to invite conversation and being able to be vulnerable about what's really possible, what's really potentially doable within your limitations is a first place to start. And realizing that you're probably not going to be able to, I don't know, maybe you can't do all the social media and the marketing. Maybe you can't do all the fundraising and the writing. Maybe you can't do, all of the going out in the community and canvassing. That's good, because that means that, like, in order for this mission and this vision to thrive, you need other people. Like, you require the talents and the gifts and the fire and inspiration of other people to bring their selves and their true selves to this work so they can share in this with you. I think that helps to kind of create that balance of, I'm too close to everything, but I'm too far away. It's just acknowledging that you were never meant to do this alone, and you're never meant to do this with everyone involved, right? So I think it's really about creating effective relationships with those who see themselves in doing the work with you, but being really honest with yourself about what you vulnerably can and can't do. Like, this is a hard place for a lot of mission-driven nonprofit leaders to you're not going to be able to solve everything and everyone, but that's good. Know your lane, know what you can do, invite others to be on the same road as you, and then move forward together with champion this mission for the communities that you're honoring.
I feel like it's a huge blocker for many people out there who are creating communities because they want to do everything by themselves and they feel they are not ready to ask for help. They think like if they're asking for help, they're adding to other people plates some stuff. And it's like one of the questions that I usually ask on this podcast, like how do you invite other teams into the game without adding more on their plates. And it's kind of like, once again, it's kind of clear. You go, you help them, you like showcase how community helps other teams, etc. Still, in this case, I would love to ask you, how do you ask community members for help? How do you invite them to join you on this community building journey?
Yeah, yeah. So this is the marketing mind, right? This is the stakeholder like engagement strategy like coming on, where it's like, who are all the stakeholders that you want to be a part of this? There's asking for help, and then there's asking or propositioning around values. One is saying, hey, I don't know how to do this. Like, do you, like, are you informed? What do you know about this? How do we solve this, right? Like, it can give off a little bit desperate. Whereas on the other hand, it's like, I really want to see my city come up. Like, I really am so driven to see the type of change that I think is so important, not just for my generation, but for generations that are coming up. And I'm just curious to know about, like, how do you feel about what you're seeing around in our community? There's two different things that are happening. One is very problem oriented. We've got a problem, we got to figure it out. Can you also be a part of this problem situation? And like together we can figure this all out. Or the other is, I'm really curious around, like, what is it that's missing and how can we like envision something new, right? Now you're inviting curiosity, you're inviting someone else not to take on your projected concern, but you're inviting them to bring what is your concern and what matters to you and what's important to you, and allowing them to sit at the table that you're trying to construct, the community, right? Like this is about building something as a solution, but not necessarily building a community. You're building the space where everyone can come together, right? And say, this is what I've always thought, X, Y, and Z. One is problem oriented, the other is solution oriented. If you can connect with people from a solution oriented dynamic, that to me is a lot more fruitful and a lot more innovative and a lot more sustainable than saying, I would love for you to shoulder in on this issue with me together. It's a lot easier for people to say no. You keep it open-ended. It's the same when I ask people questions, I'm a huge fan of keeping them open-ended, right? Because the first kind of way of saying yes or no, do you like this, yes or no, versus what do you like? Well, I like this, I like that. I think it's that slight pivot of keeping yourself open, keeping your conversations open, and keeping the way you build relationships open, versus saying, are you available to do this as part of something that I think you might like? And then because then you're entertaining uncertainty, ambiguity. I'm a little curious about what your agenda is, and I'm not really fully sure about what your real ask is. Whereas the open-endedness means I want to know who you are first. Like, what drives you and what are your motivations? What are your inspirations? What's your fire, right? What's the thing that keeps you lit day in and day out? Do you see that becoming something that could, invite others to be a part of this thing, of this solution that I'm hoping we can build, or this vision that I'm hoping to build? It really is the simple pivot of yes and no to open-ended, problem-oriented to solution-oriented.
I also know that you are a huge storyteller, fan, and expert. And I'm curious, how do you turn all these conversations that you have into storytelling? How do you create stories out of what you hear from people?
Yeah. Honestly, we're all humans. I mean, it's I think that the human condition and the human nature is the same across cultures. It's the same across backgrounds, same across countries and nations. Um, I don't think any of us have that different of a motivation outside of wanting to feel like we belong and wanting to feel like, our experience is validated, and wanting to feel like I have a purpose or a calling on my life. And I think it's not to simplify human nature, but I think those are very consistent elements across, the types of conversations we typically have with one another. And so I think with storytelling, it's about being able to kind of reflect back to that same like place of vulnerability and feeling like, wow, this person is going through the same sort of narrative arc of there was an origin, there was a moment of crisis and an inquiry that allowed them to get to a place of, okay, I feel a bit resolved. That might become the next loop for another story. I do feel like that is very much a very human process. We are born, we come into this world, we experience numerous crises. Who am I? What am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I called to do for which people? And then we have other circumstances that start to validate that. Oh, like some of us go to school, some of us don't go to school. Some of us become caretakers for our family and build legacy, generational wealth in a very different way. Some of us become moguls and entrepreneurs and build generational wealth and legacy in a different way. I don't think those motivations are different. I think the executions of them are. But I think at the core of it all, we all are born, and there is going to become a point where we are no longer here. And being able to communicate everything in between is why I think storytelling is so important, because we are constantly looking for ourselves in another narrative. Something that says, oh God, it validates my anxiety, or it validates this quiet motivation or this quiet voice that's been telling me to just step outside my comfort zone, but I've been really afraid to do it. And finally someone else did it. And you know what? I'm going to trust myself and do the same thing too. I think that is the beauty of storytelling, is because it allows us to be quintessentially human and it allows us to be quintessentially ourselves, not someone else. Um, and I think that is a value that I think it's not an art. I think it is a primal need for us to continue to make that at the forefront of the work that we're doing as community builders, as marketers, as business leaders. To really make sure that your storytelling is ensuring that the members of your community can see themselves, but also see themselves with you. Because then that's where, yeah, I mean, if you want to turn this to a business tactical element, yeah, you can turn that into the profit because they want to continue to invest in you. But they weren't investing in you because they wanted to give you money, right? That was never the start point. It was always because you showed me what I had always wanted to become. And because of this impactful storytelling, I'm in a place where I want to invest into you and drive revenue or drive sustainable funding, whatever it might be. That is where that becomes that business tactical strategy. But it does start with storytelling.
You know, to a point when you told that it's all human, I had immediately in my mind it's emotions because our storytelling it's all about emotions, it's all about sparking some maybe sadness, maybe happiness, maybe some other like you name it. There are like hundreds of different emotions as people can call it. Sometimes they're mixed. And I feel like it's also a lot about sparkling this emotion with storytelling when you are sharing other stories, when you are like reflecting on their stories and like telling like, hey, this person did that, maybe you can do this too, or maybe we can together try this, or maybe you can ask this person a question and maybe they will help you, maybe they will give you some kind of advice, not like guideline, because usually nobody follows guidelines, because otherwise, you know, one person could create it like how to become a millionaire guideline and everyone would follow it. No, no one follows it. And once again, every story is a different story. So I also feel like what I heard, it's also about emotional connection inside.
Yeah, yeah. With a nonprofit right now who they're going through their end of year, actually working with two of them right now who are going through their end of year fundraising. And, you know, again, these are all appeals. Please give to our campaign, right? So we're going to leverage our email. We're going to leverage our social media. We're going to meet our audiences wherever they are. So let's say you do meet them. And is the ask literally just, can you give money? Or is the ask to invite them into conversation with us and say, without your support, you know, this is the type of work, this is the type of return on impact that we're able to make possible, right? We're not leading with the problem, we're leading with the solution. We are inviting you to get behind us and helping us to bridge and close gaps within our community through our resources and services and products, right? Now you're putting your reader, right, or your viewer in a position to co-align, not co-sign, co-align with you and think about all the ways that they can support you. Sometimes it's going to be financial, sometimes it's going to be they're going to amplify their message, your message on their networks. But you've if you want to use marketing message, you've converted them, yes, to retain behind your mission and be an ambassador. But what you also did was you allow them to make an active decision on their own selves through their own uh, through a filter of emotions and logic and say, I want to be an agent of change as well. And it's through this organization that I can do that. So it's really about, I love that you did bring that up because it is about like the emotional connection is important, but the logic allows for that sense of agency for an individual to make the decision for themselves to say, I want to support this. Sometimes we do it the opposite way. We try to push logic and it be like, well, duh, like don't you want to support, don't you want to support the work behind homelessness and houselessness? And don't you want to support the work behind like literacy? Yes, we do. But I do think that the emotional tie does a much more impactful, effective way of um, converting or co-aligning with others to share in the work with you because it allows for them to feel empowered and enabled versus feeling imposed upon. And that's important. And that's not the sexiest form of converting, right? I think because you really have to trust that this person will come to their own revelation. But I think that is the most impactful way because then they have a place that is authentically theirs, their own story that they can turn to and say, you know what, I was someone who was homeless and houseless, and I understand the work that is being done behind helping so many other people do this type of work. And I'm so glad that someone is doing it because I know I've been there, and I want to be able to support the work that these individuals are doing from a personal stance, not because, yeah, everyone deserves shelter, right? That's a human need. I mean, like that's a human need, but it's not a challenging of logic. It's a challenging of invitation. Will you join us in doing this work?
You know, I feel like we just scratched the surface of this conversation. We can jump and talk into like much more details, and it will be like never ending conversation because once again, is there ever an answer? Should everyone like have homes? I mean, like, yes, and it's always like but or and there is like a whole bunch of other conversations. And I really wish to have the sky as the limit to our conversation, but
Yeah.
time is the limit. So the final question: what is one thing to do right away for someone who is working, who is building community for nonprofit and struggling with getting funding? So what is one thing to do right away to try to get this funding?
Yeah. That's the mission behind the practice that I do, which is I like to invite people to come home. Come home to yourself. Come home to your why. Ask yourself why you started to want to do this work in the first place. It's gotten really easy for a lot of organizations to adopt the language and the jargon of marketing and of branding and of what other organizations are doing, and what's commercial, what's profitable, and as a result we kind of lose ourselves in that, and the why becomes this diluted, quiet, small ember. And so I really want leaders, community leaders, to always invite in their practice, whether it's a monthly practice, a quarterly practice, whatever it is, come back home to yourself and just remind yourself of your why. And invite opportunities for inquiry for clarity, not inquiry for I'm not doing this right, right? Let's get away from that problem oriented language. Let's invite clarity to reveal new opportunities for solutions and new opportunities for collaborations that weren't possible before. Um, but coming home is a really big thing for me. Come back home to the work you set out to. Come back home to the origin story that you had for yourself, and reignite yourself with that flame that's going to carry you through and light up your community exactly the way you thought you would.
Yeah. Yeah. And last but not least, name two people I should reach out to and have this conversation with.
Yeah, there are two people that came to mind who are doing really awesome work. One is she's a former colleague of mine. Her name is Vansia Brantley. She is a Detroit-based nutrition wellness coach. Her story is really awesome because she, in her own ways, lost, I think, 80 pounds, almost close to 100 pounds on her own. And she has been able to really help other working moms, other corporate individuals who just don't have time to like try and think about work. She's been able to really empower others to say, no, you can do this work. And it's important for you, not just for the sake of looking good, but your families need you. And this is how you show up for them. Your jobs and your employees need you. And this is how you show up for them.
Yeah.
I love the way she made fitness not an aesthetic thing, but she's made it a relational thing, a way of responsibility for each other. And then my friend Yoli Stewart, she is a Syracuse-based cultural writer. She has used her gifts and talents to bring more awareness about the community to the community. So she uses her skills as a former journalist writer to talk about all of the new kind of like cultural art opportunities that have been emerging in the city,
Hmm.
and really kind of like making it available and accessible to communities who wouldn't typically have access to this. She's also She uses dance as a way of bridging communities as well. I've participated in her class before, so it was really cool to kind of just see how she's bringing community together through dance. And in a city like Syracuse, it's great to see that we're investing behind leaders like that who are bringing
Mm.
their full authentic selves to the forefront and creating safe space for us to just be human.
Got it, Jenny. Thank you so much. And like your phrase of coming home literally hit the home for me, and I was like, yeah, it's always kind of like some people call it coming back to your why. And for example, if we're talking about Simon Sinek, like coming back to your why 5 times, but I really like more like coming home and being like open, honest, vulnerable person. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your approach with me. It's been a huge
Thank
pleasure
you.
to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you. It's you're I've said it before, you're shepherding wonderful work, and I'm glad to be a part of the community that you're building.
Thank you, Jenny. And yeah, see you in the community world. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about how the community can help you reach and overcome your business goals faster, let's connect on LinkedIn and talk about it. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.